Every PGA Tour course has 18 holes, the same golf ball, the same clubs, the same rules, and by Sunday afternoon, the winning score usually isn't all that different. So why does one tournament look like it's being played in the middle of a Scottish coastline? Another inside the world's most perfectly manicured garden, another on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, and another on a golf course that seems designed to mentally torture the best players on Earth? Here's the strange part. None of those differences are about making golf harder. They're about making different golfers uncomfortable. Every great course has a target, not a target score, a target weakness. One is hunting golfers who can't shape the ball. Another is hunting golfers who lose patience. Another is hunting golfers who panic under pressure. That's why the same player can look completely unbeatable one week and strangely ordinary the next. They're not taking the same test. They're answering a completely different question. And once you realize what those questions are, you'll never watch another PGA Tour event the same way again. Let's start with the most famous golf course in America, because Augusta National asks a question that almost no other golf course dares to ask. Can you create a golf shot instead of simply hitting one? When most people think of Augusta, they picture bright azaleas, towering Georgia pines, perfectly striped fairways, grass so green it almost looks fake. Everything about the place feels peaceful. That's the first lie Augusta tells you, because underneath all that beauty, it's quietly one of the most manipulative golf courses ever built. Not because it's brutally narrow, not because it's impossibly long, but because it constantly convinces players they're safer than they really are. Take the fairways. They're enormous. Some are almost twice as wide as fairways players see just a few weeks later on tour. To the average golfer, they almost look forgiving. That's exactly what Bobby Jones wanted. Because Augusta was never designed to punish bad tee shots. It was designed to punish average second shots. The wide fairways tempt players into relaxing. They think they've survived the difficult part of the hole. In reality, the difficult part hasn't even started. At the end of those fairways sit some of the most complex greens in professional golf. From television, they look smooth, almost gentle. Stand on one, and you realize you're standing on something closer to a roller coaster than a putting surface. Hidden ridges, false fronts, tiny shelves, slopes so severe they can turn what look like a perfect approach into a 40-foot putt. That's why Augusta isn't really asking players to hit greens. It's asking them to hit the right 4 feet of the green. Those are two completely different skills. Here's where Augusta becomes unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. On most PGA Tour courses, a straight golf shot is exactly what you're trying to hit. At Augusta, a straight shot is often the wrong shot. Imagine someone handed you a paper airplane, pointed toward a moving target, and said, "You can only hit it if the airplane turns left halfway there." That's Augusta National. Some pin locations demand a draw. Others demand a fade. Sometimes the ball has to land 10 yards away from the hole, bounce once, catch a slope, and slowly feed toward the cup. Miss that angle by only a few degrees, and the exact same swing suddenly leaves you 40 feet away. When Bobby Jones and legendary architect Alister MacKenzie built Augusta in the early 1930s, they weren't trying to create America's hardest golf course. In fact, they believed many courses had become too predictable. Fairways kept getting narrower. Rough kept getting thicker. The same challenge, over and over again. Jones wanted something completely different. He wanted a golf course that rewarded imagination, not just power, not just mechanics. He had fallen in love with Scotland's ancient links courses, where golfers weren't rewarded for repeating one perfect swing. They were rewarded for inventing different shots every single day. He wanted Augusta to feel exactly like that. So instead of narrowing fairways, he widened them. Instead of demanding accuracy off the tee, he demanded creativity into the green. The result is one of the only golf courses in the world where 2 players can hit the exact same drive, from the exact same spot, and one finishes with a birdie, while the other struggles just to make par. Not because one hit the ball farther, because one understood how the golf course wanted the ball to arrive. That's why Augusta has always belonged to artists. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Bubba Watson. They weren't just incredible golfers. They saw shots other players didn't even consider. Take Bubba Watson's famous escape during the 2012 Masters playoff. Deep in the trees, completely blocked out, he hooked the ball nearly 40 yards around the forest and somehow landed it on the green. To everyone watching, it looked impossible. To Augusta, it looked completely normal, because that's exactly the kind of imagination the course was built to reward. Meanwhile, some of the straightest, most technically perfect golfers in history have spent decades arriving at Augusta with flawless swings, only to leave wondering why none of it worked, because Augusta isn't asking whether you can hit a golf ball well. Almost every PGA Tour player already can. It's asking something much stranger. Can you make the golf ball do something it doesn't naturally want to do? And just when you think you've finally solved Augusta, it changes the puzzle. Every night during Masters Week, officials decide where tomorrow's pins will be cut. A hole that demanded a draw on Thursday might reward a fade on Sunday. The fairway hasn't changed, the trees haven't moved, the green is exactly the same. Yet suddenly, it's asking an entirely different question. That's why first-time visitors often struggle. They try to memorize Augusta. The champions understand something different. You don't memorize Augusta, you negotiate with it. Every single day. But if Augusta rewards imagination, there's another course that couldn't care less how creative you are. Because Pebble Beach asks a much colder question. How perfect can you be when perfection is the only thing that survives? Pebble Beach rewards precision, not the kind measured in feet, the kind measured in inches. Because Pebble Beach doesn't care how beautiful your golf swing looks. It only cares where the golf ball finishes, and if it's even slightly off. The Pacific Ocean is waiting. What's amazing is that Pebble Beach almost wasn't designed at all. In 1919, two amateur golfers, Jack Neville and Douglas Grant, were handed one of the most spectacular coastlines in America. Neither had ever designed a golf course before. No famous architect, no decades of experience, just cliffs, waves, and one incredible stretch of California coastline. Years later, Neville admitted something almost unbelievable. The routing was basically obvious. When half your property overlooks the Pacific Ocean, why wouldn't you put as many golf holes there as possible? Nature had already designed most of the course. They simply connected the dots. More than 100 years later, Pebble Beach is still considered one of the greatest golf courses ever built. Not because it's the longest, not because it's the hardest, because it gives you almost nowhere to hide. Here's something that surprises almost everyone. By modern PGA Tour standards, Pebble Beach is actually short. Today, tour professionals routinely play courses stretching beyond 7,500 yards. Pebble barely reaches 7,000. So why does it continue embarrassing the best golfers on Earth? Because length was never supposed to be its defense. Space was, or more accurately, the complete lack of it. Pebble's greens are among the smallest players see all season. From a drone, they almost look fake. Tiny patches of green squeeze between cliffs, bunkers, and open ocean. Miss by only a few feet, and suddenly your entire hole changes. Hit your approach 5 feet too long, and you're scrambling for par. Miss 5 feet in the wrong direction, and your golf ball might disappear into the Pacific forever. That's a completely different kind of pressure. Augusta usually punishes your next putt. Pebble punishes the shot you're hitting right now. Nowhere captures that better than the famous 8th hole. It's one of the most breathtaking holes in golf, and one of the most terrifying. The tee shot is completely blind. Players launch their drive over a hill with absolutely no idea where the ball lands. Only after walking over the crest does the Pacific Ocean suddenly appear beneath them, one of the greatest reveals in sports. Then comes the second shot, a full carry across a rocky ocean inlet toward one of the smallest greens in championship golf. There's almost nowhere to miss. Left, rocks. Right, bunker. Short, the Pacific Ocean. Long, another impossible recovery. Jack Nicklaus famously called it the greatest second shot in golf. He didn't call it the easiest. But here's what makes Pebble so brilliant. It isn't trying to scare you. It doesn't need giant water hazards, bizarre architecture, or trick greens. Nature already does all of that. Every crashing wave reminds players exactly what's waiting below. Every gust of coastal wind changes the calculation. Every hole quietly whispers the same question. How precise are you? Really? That's why the US Open keeps coming back. The USGA isn't looking for the golfer who can overpower a golf course. They're looking for the golfer who can survive one. Pebble punishes mistakes so small most fans never even notice them. A drive that finishes 3 yards farther left than intended. An approach struck one groove too low on the club face. A putt traveling 6 inches too fast. Each mistake feels insignificant, until Sunday afternoon, when 4 days of tiny errors suddenly become the difference between lifting a trophy and finishing 20th. Tiger Woods proved that better than anyone. At the 2000 US Open, he didn't just win, he destroyed the field. 15 shots. It's still one of the greatest performances in major championship history. What's remarkable is that Pebble actually removed many of Tiger's biggest advantages. His incredible length mattered less. Everyone had to hit irons into tiny greens, survive impossible recoveries, stay patient. What Pebble couldn't neutralize was Tiger's precision, his discipline, his short game, his ability to hit exactly the shot the moment required, over and over and over again. While everyone else looked like they were fighting the golf course, Tiger looked like he already knew the answers. And that's the difference between Augusta and Pebble Beach. Augusta asks, can you imagine a shot nobody else sees? Pebble asks, can you execute the shot everyone sees, perfectly? One rewards creativity, the other punishes imperfection. Neither is testing the same golfer. Which brings us to the golf course that may ask the cruelest question of all. Because TPC Sawgrass doesn't really care how talented you are. It wants to know something much more uncomfortable. What happens to your brain? The moment fear takes over. Pete Dye didn't believe golf should simply reward great swings. He believed it should expose bad decisions. He once described his philosophy as creating golf courses that forced players to think, not just swing. Every tee shot, every approach, every decision, his courses constantly ask the same question: are you absolutely sure? And nowhere is that philosophy clearer than a hole that's only 137 yards long. A hole every PGA Tour player should hit almost every single time. Yet somehow, more than 100,000 golf balls are pulled from the surrounding water every year. Think about that. A pitching wedge, a green nearly 4,000 square feet in size, the best golfers on earth, over 100,000 golf balls. How is that possible? Because the greatest hazard Pete Dye ever built was never the water. It was doubt. The 17th hole at TPC Sawgrass shouldn't be famous. From a distance, it almost looks ordinary. It's only 137 yards. Most PGA Tour players hit that club dozens of times every week. The green isn't unusually small. There are no trees blocking the shot, no impossible forced carry, no hidden bunkers. On paper, it should be one of the easiest holes on the course. Instead, it's one of the most feared holes in all of sports. Why? Golf isn't won by perfect swings. It's lost by hesitant ones. What's even crazier, the island green almost never existed. Originally, Pete Dye designed a normal par 3 with water running alongside the green. But as construction continued, crews kept digging sand out of the area to build the rest of the course, and little by little, the ground around the green disappeared. Eventually, the green was sitting alone inside what looked like a giant crater. Most architects would have seen a mistake. Pete Dye's wife, Alice, an outstanding golfer and brilliant strategist herself, saw an opportunity. She told Pete to stop fighting the land. Just surround the green with water. Pete hated the idea. Alice's response became legendary. If you don't like it, build a bridge. He did. And one accidental design decision created the most recognizable par 3 in golf. Here's what's fascinating. The island green isn't difficult because it's unfair. It's difficult because your brain convinces you it is. The putting surface is nearly 4,000 square feet, a generous target from only 137 yards. Professionals know they should hit it almost every time, which somehow makes it even harder, because from the moment they leave the 16th green, they're no longer thinking about the golf shot. They're thinking about the water. They're thinking about television cameras. They're thinking about every viral clip they've ever seen of a tour pro rinsing one. They're thinking about the thousands of fans waiting for disaster. By the time they finally swing, they aren't reacting to the shot. They're reacting to the consequences. He didn't design an island green. He designed doubt. And once you realize that, you start seeing it everywhere at Sawgrass. Risk almost never announces itself. Instead, it whispers, go for it. Every hole becomes a negotiation. Driver or iron? Attack the flag or play to the center? Cut the corner or take the longer route? Sawgrass doesn't reward the boldest golfer. It rewards the golfer who knows exactly when not to be bold, a much harder skill. Even the way the course looks serves that purpose. Fairways twist unexpectedly. Greens sit at awkward angles. Runoff areas seem harmless until your ball rolls into one. A shot that misses by 3 feet often doesn't just cost one stroke. It changes the angle of your next shot. One mistake becomes 2, then 3. Pete Dye wasn't trying to make impossible golf holes. He was trying to make ordinary golf shots feel uncomfortable. Even the stadium itself changed golf forever. Before TPC Sawgrass opened in 1980, most golf courses weren't built for spectators, and fans simply followed the players wherever they could. Dye flipped that idea upside down, sculpting massive earth mounds around greens and fairways to create natural amphitheaters where thousands of people could watch from above. It also changed pressure, because suddenly players weren't performing in front of scattered galleries. They were performing inside outdoor arenas, and every mistake had thousands of witnesses. By now, you've probably noticed something. Augusta isn't testing power. Pebble isn't testing distance. Sawgrass isn't testing accuracy. They're each testing something much more specific: imagination, precision, discipline. 3 famous courses, 3 completely different definitions of what great golf actually looks like. But those differences didn't begin with Augusta, or Pebble, or Sawgrass. They began hundreds of years earlier, before golf course architects even existed, at a course that wasn't designed at all. It was discovered, St. Andrews, not just one of the most famous golf courses on earth, but the place where golf itself learned how to look. Long before Augusta National, long before Pebble Beach, long before TPC Sawgrass, golf was played along a windswept stretch of Scottish coastline where nobody had planned anything. There were no architects, no bulldozers, no blueprints. Just sheep grazing across sandy dunes and golfers hitting balls wherever the land allowed. Nature decided where the fairways went, where the bunkers formed, how every hole would play. Humans simply accepted the answers. Imagine removing every tree from a golf course, letting the grass dry until it becomes almost as firm as concrete, replacing soft fairways with rolling sand dunes, then adding a 30-mile-per-hour wind that changes direction every few hours. That's links golf. and suddenly the rules change. A hole that required nothing more than a short iron this morning might demand a fairway wood by the afternoon. The golf course didn't change, the weather did. On a true links course, that's all it takes. That unpredictability forced golfers to invent an entirely different way to play the game. On most American golf courses, the goal is simple: hit it high, land it softly, stop it next to the flag. But try that on a true links course, and the wind becomes part of your golf swing. A shot that would have landed 6 feet from the hole yesterday might end up 30 yards away today. So links golfers learned something almost every modern golfer forgets. Sometimes the smartest shot never leaves the ground. Instead of flying the ball all the way to the green, they land it 30 yards short, let it bounce, release, and allow the natural contours of the earth to do the rest. In Scotland, you don't play against the land, you play with it. Parkland golf evolved as almost the complete opposite. Instead of sandy coastlines, dense forests. Instead of firm, brown fairways, lush green grass watered every day. Instead of unpredictable bounces, soft landing areas with fairway, rough, trees, and green all given a clear boundary. The challenge isn't figuring out how the ground will react anymore. It's controlling the golf ball through the air, which is why so many iconic American championship courses reward towering iron shots that land softly beside tucked pins. The landscape itself encourages precision from above. Then there's desert golf, which might be the strangest style of all, because unlike links or parkland, desert golf shouldn't exist. Look at courses around Scottsdale, Palm Springs, or Las Vegas from above, and they almost look photoshopped. Bright green ribbons cutting through miles of brown rock, sand, and cactus. Every fairway exists because someone refused to let the desert win, with thousands upon thousands of gallons of water pumped into the ground every single day, just to keep those narrow strips of grass alive. The moment that grass ends, the golf course ends. There's no forgiving rough, no gentle first cut, no easy recovery. Miss by only a few feet, and you're suddenly standing among cactus, loose rock, mesquite trees, and sometimes even rattlesnakes. It's target golf in its purest form, where the margin between perfect and penalty can literally be the width of a golf cart. Most people think famous golf courses are trying to become harder. They're not. They're trying to become more specific. Every legendary course is obsessed with exposing one weakness, and everything else is just decoration. Augusta's wide fairways aren't there because it's generous. They're there because Bobby Jones wanted to test imagination instead of accuracy. Pebble's tiny greens aren't there simply to frustrate players. They're there because every iron shot has to matter. Sawgrass didn't surround the 17th green with water just to create highlights. It did it to see what fear looks like under pressure. Even St. Andrews isn't famous because of the wind. It's famous because the wind forces golfers to think differently than they do anywhere else in the world. That's also what finally explains something that's confused golf fans for decades. Why don't the same players dominate every tournament? Because they're not taking the same exam. One week the course rewards imagination. The next, discipline. Then precision. Then patience. A player who feels unstoppable at Augusta can suddenly look ordinary at Sawgrass. A Pebble Beach specialist might struggle the moment links golf forces them to abandon the aerial game they've trusted their entire career. The clubs haven't changed. The golf ball hasn't changed. The player hasn't changed. The question has. That's why the greatest careers in golf aren't built on mastering one course. They're built on mastering change. Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, Tom Watson. They all won in completely different environments, not because they had one perfect swing, but because they understood something almost everyone else eventually learns. Every golf course wants something different from you. The greatest players don't force their game onto the course. They let the course tell them how it wants to be played, and then they adapt, again and again and again. So the next time you watch a PGA Tour event, don't just watch the golfers. Watch the golf course, the width of the fairways, the shape of the greens, the placement of the bunkers, the trees, the wind, the elevation, the water. Every single one of those features is trying to convince a player to make one decision instead of another, long before anyone swings a club. And once you see that, you really will never watch a PGA Tour event the same way again.